o'clock, everybody.
Tell you a lot more about than I can.
We'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. Morning. First on the agenda here is the agenda approval.
Mr. Chair, there are two items. One, I want to confirm that you have Natural Resource Management 7F, review timber appraisals for the year. That was added late.
Okay.
Yeah, I looked at it. It
And,
opened fine.
and then we want to add Highway 6E, road restrictions.
All right, thank you.
I'll move to approve the agenda with the changes.
Thank you, Dave.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any further discussion?
Timber appraisals, I didn't get those.
We can get you copies, or I can put it up on the screen when we get to it.
If you log out and log back in, it'll be on there. 'Cause
I just logged into to email and I don't see it.
Because when I went in yesterday, it was on there.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carried. Public input. Is there any public input this morning? All righty. Now on to the consent agenda. Are there any additions or changes to that?
I got one, and I got to know, was Dan Stacy at the work session? Because it has him as present.
Oh, good catch.
I know where he was.
No, we'll have to modify that.
Okay, so we'll make a correction to that.
Trying to get that per diem.
The
Sorry,
big bucks.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Also moved.
Thank you, Shar. And a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dan. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. County employee recognition. All righty, the County Sheriff's Department. We have Courtney Villeneuve, began the full-time position of Deputy Sheriff on February 28th, 2022. Highway has Erin Asleson, began the full-time position of Engineer Specialist on February 28th of this year. Ethan Nanston began the full-time position of Engineering Technician 3 on February 28th. And Social Services, Jennifer Tolley began the full-time position of Social Worker Children's Services on March 14th. Thank you all. And there's a couple in attendance, it looks like. Thank you. All righty. On to Human Resources.
I know, I don't look like Gina, but
No, you do not.
I'm just stepping in
It's
for
the
Gina.
hair.
It's the hair, right? Everything else is,
Could be the jacket.
could be the jacket. I'm just stepping in for Gina. She is not able to make it this morning, so on the agenda is we're requesting permission to start a new adult services social worker at a step 5 based on their prior experience from 2 other counties that they work for, so.
Well, this has kind of been an ongoing discussion even about, yeah, so I will move to approve.
Thank you, Shar.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dave.
Just the whole grading system itself.
Yeah, and this one's coming from my previous county. So stealing one by one, I will.
Well, it's nice that we have this option
Yeah, and
to be able to bring people on board.
Yes.
Commissioners, we will be bringing forward through Personnel Committee administrative adjustment to the policy whereby HR and the hiring supervisor make a recommendation within a range, given this amount of information, just to be more responsive and reflective of the market and be able to bring people in. The current policy says step one with an exception of board approval of someplace else. And so we'll be drafting a policy that says we'll make a recommendation based on their past experience where to seat them. And if the supervising manager and the HR agree, in a range of they'll start at step 4 or step 5, we'd still leave in there that if there was extraneous circumstances, we bring it to the board. But just to keep pace, recognize that if we're bringing somebody in with experience, we can't start them at step 1 and be competitive. That'll be coming before you, but until it does, we have to do this.
And just like a private business, if somebody came in with experience, they may be starting at a higher wage than
Correct.
step 1. So. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I
Thank
met the person that took your position in Beltrami.
Oh, Kurt,
Yeah, very nice gentleman.
he is very nice, yes. A very, very good person, for sure. But thank you very much.
Highway and Survey.
Good morning. Got a few things on the agenda for you today. The first item up, we got review and approve quote for a trailer to be used for highway signing. With our experience through the Enbridge, this kind of brought out a need that we had in the highway department for having a trailer that's set up with our signing ready to go. As we were set up, we would have to call staff back into the shop, load up everything, including the signs, the sandbags, you name it, to get out there for a temporary road closure. And of course, in the spring, we have those issues where we need to shut a road down temporarily and whatnot. So we thought it would be nice to have a trailer set up, ready to go, where pretty much any employee could just go in, hook onto it, bring those signs out, and we get those closures set up in short order. And so we did solicit a couple different quotes from local vendors. The low quote being Up North Power and Sports out of Park Rapids. The low quote was $3,098.76. This does include the title and registration fees. And you see the second quote was very, very close, but it did not include those fees. So it'd be my recommendation to go with the low quote of Up North Power and Sports.
I'll make that recommendation. I'll second.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dave. Is there any other signs, like the regular road signs and stuff? Will they also be part of this trailer, or?
Well, we'd have, you got type 3 barricades. That's the big barricades that go up. We've got type 2s. We've got the smaller ones that say, road closed ahead, road work ahead. Any signs we would possibly need out there, we would be able to have those placed on there, so.
Okay. I was thinking like, for county roads that might say stop ahead or something like that. Would those also be part of this, or?
Not part of this. Those are actually held on the sign truck. And so if they get work orders that they have to go out and do that, then the truck is set up for that. This would be just for the temporary closures,
Okay.
handling stuff like the pipeline protests, as an example, or a road that gets washed out with spring runoff and those such things. So those are the things where we needed to be kind of a little more prepared on the short order, but the
You
other
can't-
stuff is,
You can't haul all that stuff on one truck.
no.
All right, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Review and approve quote for annual signing supplies. Each year we go through, we have our sign tech go through, look at our inventory of what they think that they're gonna need for the year, and then send a quote request out to the sign companies that we deal with. Solicited 3 quotes with M&R Sign Company out of Fergus Falls being the low at $13,525. That includes the delivery. So the bottom 2 quotes were pretty close, and that'd be the recommendation is go with M&R. They're a well-known company to us and supply good quality materials.
I'll move to support the recommendation of the low quote.
Thank you, Dave.
I will second.
Thank you, Shar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next up, we got review and approve bid for project CP 29-22-02. This is our aggregate surfacing. It will be in the south half of the county This year, we received 5 bids, with the low being William D. Saponiak out of Holdingford, Minnesota, $619,144.06. And in the miscellaneous information on the right side, I've got it broken down. The first one is what goes on our county roads, and we got some townships that are jumping on board. And then we do a stockpile that we use for shouldering throughout the year.
And the township road, and even the county roads without, and the township roads are just the southern half of the county this year?
Correct. Yep. We alternate every other year.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, next up, I got discussion regarding the tandem truck chassis and snowplow equipment. If you recall, last March, I believe, we submitted an order for the truck for last year, and we still have yet to see that truck. I believe the chassis will come off the line sometime this month, and then it goes to the box and the snowplow company, which I think they had plenty of time to plan for this one, but we should hopefully see it before the snow season comes towards the end of the year. But the reason I bring that up is that those are the type of wait times that we're starting to see with these bigger pieces of equipment, whether it's supply chain issues or circuit boards or whatever the reason may be. And so even though we didn't have a truck budgeted for this year, we did start to have the talks with the companies to see what's going on with your pricing, what's going on with delivery times. And basically, if we were to order a truck right now, we would not expect delivery until probably January of '23. That's for the truck itself. And then the quote from the box and the snowplow companies has a 48 to 54 week waiting period on that. So there's a chance that if we were to order a truck right now, we wouldn't see it until the end of '23, early '24, which obviously we don't have a chance to budget right now for that, but we can plan for it through use of reserves. But in all actuality, the county doesn't pay for the truck until delivery. And so what I would be asking you for today, if you're willing to let us order a truck or possibly 2, is that it does commit us to those funds, but we don't pay until we get that. And so we would have a chance to budget, but nonetheless, we do have equipment reserves to cover something such as this. So we solicited the bids, the quotes for it. The truck chassis comes off the state contract, so we only get the one from the company that handles this area for Mack Trucks. We're very happy with Mack Trucks. And then we go out to 2 different box and snowplow companies. And after we received their quotes, then I opened up the communication with them to say, would they be able to honor this for 2 trucks as opposed to the one that we requested, and both of them said, yeah, we would be willing to do that. So, I took a look at our equipment replacement schedule, and for years, we've operated under the premise that we should keep plow trucks for roughly 20 years. And that's just turning out to be, that just seems a little bit too long. I did have a conversation with the Administrator Cadwell, and we talked about, what I'm hearing from other counties, what I'm hearing from the vendors. 20 years to keep trucks is very, very long. Most of the counties that we hear from are in a 10 to 12 year replacement range. And we have 14 trucks that we operate. If we were to move down to that type of a replacement, you'd almost bet that we would see a truck every year on the budget. You could just plan for it. And so I redid our equipment replacement schedule with a 14-year deal. And as it sits, we've currently got 6 trucks out of the 14 that are already over their service life. And some of the issues that we see with service life is, when you go to sell the truck, you don't get a lot for it. And then you also have issues like we've got one on the road right now that's got frame issues. The old frames used to have a double C channel. And of course, dealing in the salt and what they do, that starts to get in there, and then the rust pushes those apart. So we have frame issues. That's similar to one truck that we recently sold on the auction. And we should not be in that situation to be running those things on the road. So I think we're keeping them a little bit long, and so we had agreed that maybe we look at a 12 to 15 year cycle on this, but again, that brings us back to about a truck a year. At that rate, it's gonna take us still about 9 years of doing a truck a year to get us into the whole fleet being turned over into those acceptable ranges. That's why it would be my recommendation that we do order the 2 trucks. Basically, that would cover our 23 truck and our 24 truck to get us back in a little bit of order. The other thing we look at I think I just had our accountants throw together some typical costs that we've been seeing. The oldest truck that we've got in our fleet is a 1999, and that is the one that is scheduled to be replaced by the truck that we're waiting on, so we hardly use that. That's one of our spares. They had low maintenance costs because we just don't use it. And then the highest expense, we had $24,404 spent on labor and parts on one of our vehicles in the span of 1 year. And that truck is a 2009, so that would be one of the ones that'd be replaced with the next two trucks that we would order in. Got 18,000, we got 17,000. Then if you look at the newer trucks, we're down in the $3,000 to $4,000 a year to operate those. So you can see it's definitely more expensive to keep the older trucks around. But
And you said that they're gonna be able to honor these prices for the times?
they would, yep. As soon as you place the order, then I sign a purchase order and it locks you in for that vehicle at that price. And so they would honor that. So with that being said, that would be my recommendation that we go with RDO Truck Center out of Fargo. So for the truck, that's $127,534. And it'd be two trucks, 2023 Mack, similar to what we've got in our current fleet. And then my recommendation for the box and the plow equipment would be through Burt's Truck Equipment out of Moorhead, and that's $127,738.
We've used Bert's quite a bit, haven't we?
We have, yep, both of those really. Those prices took a large leap this year.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, the truck itself only went up like 3,000, I think. And then they said if for a truck that's not ordered now, it's guaranteed that the next one's gonna be up another 1.5% if we were to wait. So, those are things that we gotta look at too, that if we know we need them at a certain time, get the order in as quick as you can. But the box and stuff, I believe our last quote was 106. So that went up significantly. You can see the Towmaster is well in excess of that, so.
So Jed, I think that, and fellow board members, that makes great business sense to look into the future. Where I'm employed as well, we have the same issue. They talk about worker shortage, the price of steel. And sometimes we get hooked up on trying to save money and how are we gonna budget this, and it makes no sense. You save maybe a penny, and in the long run, you're spending thousands of dollars, and we're in that same situation where you spend $1,000. I think it makes great sense to get on top of it now. We all know that everything is going up, and as far as to address the other issue regarding the other vehicles, the other plow trucks you have, keep on it.
Yep.
You're gonna cost more money in the long run, like you said, the frames, the brake linings, the whole 9 yards, and I'm in support of your decisions, both decisions, in fact, and would make that recommendation.
And that's a motion?
That is.
And that's for two vehicles and two equipment, and to equip two vehicles also?
Yeah.
So they lock in the price without a down payment?
We can, yep. They're very well aware, working with the government agencies, and that they don't get paid until the delivery of that vehicle. Yep.
That's nice.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dave.
Again, clarifying that the quoted prices are per truck.
Correct.
Correct. Yes, thank you.
And then, and I can speak to that too, in my regular job, as far as parts availability. Just about every vehicle we work on, there's some part that's on national back order. So some vehicles are going out without maybe a part here or a part there, but the customer needs to be driving their vehicle, can't sit in the shop and all the time. So I'm sure that's the same thing with your fleet.
Yeah.
Truck breaks down and a part's not available for weeks or more, and then that can affect everything.
Yeah, we're lucky enough that we do have two spare trucks, but we utilize those in the event that it's a heavy snowfall. We'll throw a couple drivers in those trucks. But yeah, then you have one locked up in the shop, then you do have that spare, and we'll continue to operate that way. We can't do it any other, especially when you look at these times for delivery. But
How is that 99 in general, maintenance-wise?
it's all right. Yeah, the drivers tend to take a liking to certain vehicles, ones that you haven't had as much of a problem with, and so that's one that's been kept. So it's not a hard, fast rule that you get a truck to 14 years or you get a truck to 20 and it's got to go. As an example, we've got one up at the north shop where we ended up replacing the box, and that's one of the first things to go. They rust out pretty bad. And it's one of the old square boxes, not the ellipticals, and it works very well for having our water tank in it. And so that's one truck that we'll keep probably a little bit longer, but yeah, all in all, our trucks are good. They're very trustworthy, but we have to keep up on the replacement. I don't think that's an option. The plow truck is our most important piece of equipment.
And that's another great point that Jed made up. You know, if an employee finds that a vehicle is always breaking down and there's issues, there's nothing more discouraging throughout the day as having breakdowns and poor equipment. And it keeps the employees happy, and we need that.
Well, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Chair, before you, oh, you have one more thing?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because you have do
Yes,
that and then
we-
I'll talk to you, okay?
Okay, so we have road restrictions that we haven't been notified yet that they're going on, and this came up a little bit fast, but all of a sudden the temperatures started increasing, and the southern regions announced then that they're gonna go, and I believe today is the day for the central region, which is just one below us. So I'm guessing with the break in for 3 weeks to the next board meeting, the restrictions will go on before then, so I apologize for the late ad, but this is just a formality for resolution in support of following basically MnDOT's direction on the spring road restrictions, and we'll go very similar to what it was last year. I did get you that list of where the roads are. For anything that's, not signed, then of course it's 5 ton for a gravel and 10 ton for a paved road, but we'll get the crew out and they'll assign these roads. And
I'll make the motion to approve the road restrictions. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
very good.
I just have a quick comment. When I went to our annual meeting at the township, I was reminded that we had put a road off for many years because it was too much money for the township, and Jed and his staff last year were instrumental in helping us get a grant for that to the tune of almost, I think it was close to $1 million.
Yeah.
So just to remind the townships, if anyone's listening, and for you as commissioners, if you have roads in your township, the highway department can be helpful in securing funds.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have natural resource management.
Good morning.
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 The first item on the agenda is an agreement with the state of Minnesota to acquire LiDAR data for the upper Mississippi River area, region. We budgeted $50,000 in our budget for this acquisition. This is part of a statewide program that eventually they're going to get LiDAR, high-quality LiDAR throughout the entire state. We are cooperating with the state of Minnesota and the USGS Geological Survey in acquiring this data. This is going to be used in combination with our plot-based data that we approved here a couple of meetings ago. And this is basically going to give us a new forest inventory. They're going to use the data from both sets to derive a new forest inventory for Hubbard County. So, and our data, our forest inventory currently is about 30 years old, so it is well out of date. And every time we do a timber sale, we update it, but, there's some of those stands that, that you don't manage on a short rotation cycle that just keep getting older and older and older, and they're more and more out of date. So we do have an agreement that needs to be signed by the chairman, and we're looking for a vote on that.
Any questions? If not, I'll look for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Dave. And a second?
I can second.
Thank you, Shar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is resolution to apportion our 2021 tax forfeited sales fund net proceeds. Last year, our net proceeds from the tax forfeited sales fund was $854,292.10. Under the apportionment laws that we have, the county board can authorize up to 30% of that net proceeds to be put into the forest development account. That forest account right now is relatively healthy. We try to keep it at about $1 million. And that is what we use for our site prep and our tree planting, and it's to be used for maintenance and improvements of our county forests. So that's what we use that for. We're only asking that you apportion 20% rather than the maximum 30% this year. In that, again, as I said, the fund balance is relatively healthy. $170,000, which is the 20%, will bring us back up to about that $1 million balance. We're based on what we anticipate for our costs for site prep and tree planting this year. So what that does is that leaves more dollars in the kitty that we end up apportioning to the general fund, the school districts and the township. So we try and keep this as low as possible, but to still fully fund our programs.
So educate me a little bit, that 30 to 20 or whatever, this particular fund area. So we're looking at Val Chotel. Would that monies that you have in this is 1 million or whatever be able to be used for that?
No, it would not.
It is not, it's strictly
You
for
can
that.
only use this on tax forfeited land. The Val Chotel property will not be tax forfeited. It is going to be county fee land.
And
Can't
where's
use
that
this
one?
on that.
Where does that money come out of?
The money for Val Chotel,
Yeah.
that, we can get that out of our park fund.
Would that be the other
That's the other,
80% or whatever?
well,
it
that's
is?
the next resolution is for the recreation fund.
For your forest regeneration, are you regenerating the county properties according to the forest management plan, or?
Everything that we cut that would not regenerate naturally, those are being regenerated through artificial means, site prep, tree planting. And we are converting certain low-quality hardwoods and aspen sites to pine types as well. So we are following the management plan.
I was just looking at some of the potlatch lands, and they do have a lean towards regenerating to pine. And I'm sure there's some county lands that could fit that same situation.
Correct. Yes, and in every instance that we can, we are. It's based more on the soil types. And of course, potlatch is, that's their business. They're, they cut pine. They cut pine and predominantly pine, some white spruce and balsam, but predominantly they cut pine. So they were always converting anything that they had to a pine stand in order to feed their mill.
Yeah.
We have, multiple different markets that we, that our timber goes to, and not all of it is pine. So when it's appropriate, we will convert to a pine type.
But
So,
what
yeah.
what I was thinking is that since Potlatch doesn't own land anymore, but they still have the mills, and we want to keep those mills here.
Right.
We need to make sure we got the raw material for them, which means we do need to regenerate in the pine.
Yes.
Wherever appropriate.
Yep.
So I would have nothing against going to 30% if there's a time that you need to.
At this time, we don't.
Okay.
I mean.
Well, don't hesitate in the
Yeah,
future.
right, and we don't. Every chance we get, when there's a site that is, questionable as to whether it will come back to a hardwood or an aspen type, we will convert.
Okay.
And we at times will go back, and if we see a site that we thought would come back as aspen or birch or whatever, and, say 3 or 4 years later, it is not sufficient to become a mature stand that would be fully stocked, we will go back in and convert that.
Alrighty. If there's no further questions, can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Tom. And I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
The second resolution is very similar to the first, except for this is for the Parks and Recreation account. Again, the maximum that we can allocate to this account is 20%. And we are taking the maximum, or requesting to take the maximum of $170,858.42 for the recreation account. This can be used for our existing parks and also for Val Chattel.
And how much money do we have in that now?
There is about $350,000 in the parks account.
And that's the maximum we can do is the 20% out of this funds, right?
Correct.
So what happens if we hold back, we have developed a percentage of what goes back to school districts, things like that, but what happens, or if we held back that money a little bit, where would that money be able to be spent? You wouldn't be able to put it in this account for the 170 or whatever, it's tax forfeited sales, right?
No, you cannot. You cannot put more than the 20% into the recreation account.
So if we cut back, where could we use that money?
The,
Because we set it not too long ago at a percentile for school districts, correct?
nope, that is set by state. The percentage that the school districts, the townships, and the county general fund get is set by state statutes.
But it's the max level, that's,
There is no minimum maximum. It's whatever is left after we take these two portions out. 40% goes to the county general fund, 40% goes to the school districts, and 20% goes to the townships.
So the only difference if what Dan is saying is then, when we approve the 20% instead of the 30 from the last resolution, we're actually increasing their portion a little bit.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you can't use the portion that goes to forest development on the Parks Department,
Yep.
unfortunately. What the county could do, and this would be your decision, that 40% that goes to the county general fund, that could get used as a supplemental fund for the recreation.
I'd be in favor of that.
Except what do
But-
we use
but-
that 40% right now? Do we use that to keep the levy down?
That would, yes, that's what that is for, is basically to keep your levy down.
So that 40% of whatever isn't allocated in these two apportionments is basically allocated during the budget process. It's 40% of that amount that goes to the general fund, and then Chip puts that in, into the budget, and you end up approving that expenditure throughout the budget.
Speak up,
Okay.
speak again.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, mention was that in the 2022 Parks and Rec budget, you were allocated 130,000 of income from timber sales, so now you're gonna get 170, so you're pretty close to meeting your budget there. Where's the other 15% come from?
That, the rest of it comes from fund balance.
Okay.
So,
And, yeah, and another thought would be Velcitai. I guess we're gonna have a meeting coming up for the Parks and Rec Board. We're gonna
yep,
start talking about where funding's gonna come from there. We need to
that
think
is
about it
going to
too.
be an issue.
I would anticipate that while we'll be looking for grant funding for development, that in the 2023 or 2024 budget proposal, we'll see an increase in operating expenditures for parks to take on the additional cost. I mean, the annualized cost of operating that regional park is something that we have to put in the regular parks budget. The development costs, we can hold off or fund based on your approval or direction. But the operating costs will be shown as an increase in the Parks Department annualized operating costs. The year that we start having annualized operating expense. But I would anticipate we would show some of that work in 2023, even if we're not doing it. We can put it out there, show it, and then allocate those funds someplace else if we're not gonna be operating in 2023.
And as long as you're talking about that, I had a conversation with a resident last night, and just to pass along to you for the Parks and Recs, he is in favor of the Historical Society, because I got a call from the Historical Society a while back, getting involved to save historical pieces out of the lodge itself.
Yeah, like that chandelier and.
Yeah, to either
Some of
put
the-
out there somewhere in a building or to bring in here, but anyway,
Yep.
passing that on to you.
And now, Chip, this fund also funds county parks, but say in Helga Township, they're making a skating rink, ice skating rink, which, talking to the residents there, has become very popular. One of the residents made the comment that I didn't know I liked my neighbors, and stuff like that. So it's bringing the community together. And I believe, so if they ask for request funds, is this the same area that those funds come from?
This would be the area that those funds would come from.
And don't we normally request that they do 50, and then we would be willing to do 50% of what the cost is?
Typically, that has been the case where, and it's strictly for bricks and mortar. It's not for programming and those kind of things, but it's a 50-50 match.
Okay, so this, what Ted's bringing up would be different.
No, because the township is providing funding themselves.
Okay,
And they've actually got quite a ways.
Right.
There's a roof and everything.
oh, so they're building a warming house and everything?
The roof is over the whole skating rink.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where's that at?
Right there at Helga Township with the old Nary School.
Oh, I'll have to drive by.
They did
That's
approach
great.
the park board requesting funds. And of course, the park board takes a look at what our expenses for the year are. Right now, we're committed, fully committed, in fact, over-committed. So we're not able to provide any funding for that project. But we do have some funds that we have committed for the Akeley project that we're anticipating that, sometime this year that they will be getting into. And then we also have our master planning process for Deep Lake Val Chattel property. So our expenses are in excess of the $170,000 that this provides, but we have a fund balance available. But, that fund balance continues to dwindle as we spend more than we take in, so.
And this would be also like Heartland Park here in Bemidji, or Park
Heartland Park
Rapids
and Lake George and all of our boat
Ferris Park.
accesses and Ferris, yes.
Okay.
Of course, our levy was approved to support the Parks and Rec budget, even though we were anticipating only $130,000 income from timber sales, but now we got 170, so there's an extra 40,000.
So where do you want that to go?
Well, if needed at Velceti, I'd say that'd be a good place.
Well, make that motion then.
Does that need a motion?
Honestly, I'd prefer that you not apportion tens of thousands of dollars and
Yeah.
leave that in the fund and let that group, because maybe they go back and they talk about the Helga Township. We don't know that we're gonna have expenses for Val Chattel this year. We're just doing programming this year, so you can, but I would recommend against programming.
Plus, I think we're
That
gonna be
amount of money.
replacing the swing set over there. I don't know if that's in the budget.
That is not for this year.
Oh, next year, okay. But yeah, there could be other things, but it's just that there is additional 40,000 available.
Make sure we all understand that come next year then,
Yep.
or when we need it.
Well, understand that there's not going to be a surplus of $40,000. Our expenses for recreation this year are anticipated to be about 210,000.
But our total levy was approved to support the Parks and Rec budget at 130,000 of income from timber sales.
But it was also anticipated to use some fund balance.
Right.
So if revenues exceed budgeted, then we just don't use as much fund balance and we carry that forward.
For next year. Okay, so if we have any further discussion, if we can get a motion for the 20% proposal?
I'll move.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Make sure that's in the
Thank you.
minutes. Make sure that's in the minutes so you know for the rest of the.
Next item on the agenda is, I got a call from Bob McGilvery from the Trust for Public Lands. Now that he's done working on the Val Chattel property, he's turned his attentions to acquiring some of the conservation fund lands. And he does have additional funds to acquire 160 acres in Schoolcraft Township that is adjoining both county tax forfeited land and state lands. This would be in addition to the roughly 600 acres or the 540 acres of conservation fund lands that they're looking at acquiring north of Emmaville. So this is just another piece that they're looking at acquiring, and that would then come to the county. Again, on this parcel, it is all entirely Norway pine plantation that is very close to its first thinning. We anticipate that we could begin to see revenues coming off of these lands almost immediately, probably within the first 5 years. What they're looking for is just a general agreement that we should continue to move forward with this. They are planning on coming back in the very near future to kind of more finalize those lists of properties that they're looking at acquiring. They're hoping to acquire these lands and donate them to the county by mid-June.
So once again, my concern is the conservation fund overall. I get their mission statement. But what is this doing again to private ownership? You know, they come in and they can offer dollars that nobody else can. You know, logically, this makes sense that the county would accept this. However, how much land do we want? So if we're gonna accept this 160, what are we gonna sell?
Exactly.
That's an absolutely important question. In this situation, these 160 acres are landlocked in between state-owned land and
I understand that, but there's
and-
easements that could be given if there was private ownership, and I mean, it sounds like it's already a done deal. My concern is, and now you're talking about, and then they're gonna acquire more land, and so, when are we gonna stop?
That's where in a
Oops, sorry.
go ahead. Oh, okay, in a previous meeting, I had said, ask Chip to start looking for lands that can be sold. And especially, you said you're gonna be testifying on Monday, and hopefully this thing passes. And yeah, we need to start selling land that can be sold.
Because this does make, I get this does make sense for us to own, but we don't need to keep acquiring
Yep.
and not selling.
the consolidation process is exactly what you're saying. It is for us to consolidate public lands in a way that we can manage them more efficiently, increase the amount of revenues coming off of that. If these were sold individually and not developed, we would get less revenue off them than if we manage them for timber.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing that point.
But the other part of it is, if we have to provide access to these landlocked pieces, that's gonna cost us even more. So the consolidation process, A, here's the opportunity for somebody else to acquire and donate the land to the county, and B, the second part of the process, dependent on some legislation, is to find the appropriate pieces that are closer to
Right.
developed areas that we can sell off. So we
Right.
absolutely need that second part of it. And I want to work with Chip, and I've had this conversation, we had it at the last public safety meeting was to identify on the map. It's really hard for me even to look at this. I don't know where this is.
Right, I got the map out yesterday of the, you know, of all the townships, and I'm going, okay, where is this?
So
Yeah.
it's really hard to place this, but it's relatively easy to see. It's in the middle of, it's in the
Right.
middle of public lands. So to not have that almost becomes a liability if it becomes available for public sale.
And speaking to Jeff's discussion that we had on this, I think it's important that Chip start to identify and inventory those properties that can be sold.
Yep,
But I don't think we're in a position to do that at the moment, because we're still waiting on that piece of legislation that will go through, that
That's
some
right.
of these sales could be beneficial for acquiring other properties that make sense. But yeah, we should be identifying similar valued properties, not necessarily acreage, but at least valued, and be looking at how we're gonna divest of those in the future.
I've got a question, and I know exactly where this is. I've been on the property myself. So the potlatch land that the Conservation Fund bought, this parcel in particular had a person leasing it for hunting. Does the Conservation Fund then also lease the land, or those leases are discontinued, or?
I believe that they are currently honoring the leases that Potlatch had,
Okay,
but once they sell the property, they will terminate those leases. So we won't be into the lease business.
okay. And I had a resident, this is in Schoolcraft Township, I live just 2 miles east of here. I had a resident from Schoolcraft Township call me because his friend is currently leasing that, and I guess he said the county had called him, told him that we were acquiring the property and that they would have to remove their trailer and stuff. So of course, then the resident asked me, why are we buying up all this property? So I explained everything to him, and it made sense to him then at that point. As Chip said earlier, this is pine plantation. It's a beautiful spot. In about the middle, well, there's a forestry road, or Quill Road, also called the Winterstein Road, is on the east side of the property. In the middle, about the middle of the property, there's a campsite that you go up the hill to the west. But when you get up there, now it's been a few years since my son and I have been up there, but you get up to the top there and you look to the east, it's a beautiful view. But once it started renting and there was a camper sitting there, my son and I, it's like, well, we shouldn't be going on there now. It's somebody else's place. The road though, it's currently the county, or excuse me, the township. I think they maintain like the north, about a quarter of a mile on the north end and about a quarter of a mile on the south end. On the south end of the property here, the road, as you can kind of see where the red dots, takes a jog. That part of the road, especially in the springtime, is impassable. So if this was private property, the landowners would have to spend some dollars in improving that road to get to it, or ask the township, which, not being a township road, they probably wouldn't spend funds on it. So like we've kind of discussed earlier, this is a prime example of a good parcel that the county should probably acquire.
as long as Part B, then our end game is.
Yeah, if we can, yep.
Put that in the minutes as well,
Yes.
so you don't forget.
'Cause it's-
I won't forget.
So I personally, I'm in favor of this one. It makes sense for the county, and like Shar said, and we all kind of agree, we've got to get rid of some of the county lands too, so that we can keep our tax base up. Because not only do we lose just the tax base itself on a raw piece of land, but we lose out on the development part of it too. There's not that cabin or campsite or whatever that could actually increase the tax base also.
The other side of Part B, even if the legislation doesn't occur in a rapid manner, we probably should at some point in time look at something, because the market is good.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. It's not dependent just upon that. Yeah.
So we don't want to wait too long.
And we want to encourage
At least
private
with some.
ownership. We don't want to encourage more government.
Right, and there are some properties that would be good for private development. And if we wait for the market to go soft, we're just hurting ourselves either way.
And that's a deal too, where just throwing 10,000 acres out there because that's what the conservation fund bought that's in Hubbard County. It's not like Hubbard County's gonna put 10,000 acres on the market next year. You know, that would depress the market.
A perfect example I'm thinking of is now that we have the Deep Lake project, we could maybe look at that shallow lake property.
Yep.
That would be great.
Oh, yeah, that'd be perfect.
And there's one other, years ago I talked to you about, there's another one on, is it sand, big sand?
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know if that's something you think could be sold, but that would be,
I have looked at, kind of gone through our inventory and taken a look at, and I've got a list of parcels that I think that we could divest of. So, you know, when we get to that point, we can start putting up parcels. Again, we talked about, that, you know, the legislation that we have, pending in the legislature was heard before the Environment and Natural Resource Finance, or Natural Resource Legacy and Finance Committee yesterday, and I did testify on that. You know, just a procedural process, they held it over for possible inclusion. We won't know if it's gonna go anywhere until the end of the session. St. Louis County has a very similar bill that they're pushing, that they want to try and retain funds from any land sales that they can buy replacement lands with as well. So, very similar legislation. So if theirs goes, hopefully ours goes, or they combine the two together.
and will you refresh my memory, what do we do now with land sale dollars?
With what?
With lands, if we sold land now, what could we do with those dollars?
Right now, they go into the tax forfeited sales account.
Okay.
And so basically, if you can do a land sale within the same year as when you get your revenue, you're okay. The problem is that by the time we do a land sale, there's not very much time left over at the end of the year to complete a land sale. And so then you have to go through the apportionment process.
Okay.
That's where this 30 and 20% comes, and your 40% for the general fund goes. At the beginning of the year, we start out with a zero balance again. We don't have monies available to buy land then. So that's why we want to have another account that we could use, that we could carry those dollars over from year to year. The legislation we've got proposed right now says a maximum of $1 million. Are we gonna sell $1 million worth of land? Probably not. But that way we have dollars available for buying land when it becomes available. We don't kinda have to try and squeeze it in and rush it if we need to.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, if I can get a motion. I'll make the
Okay, go ahead.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. And if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a quote for microsite application of herbicide for plantation release. We're doing this on 68 acres. We have one quote from Eric Robert Spraying. Again, very few operators out there that do this type of work, so we had to twist his arm a little bit to get him to bid on it. So, but we're looking at quote of $156 per acre. And this is all handwork with a backpack sprayer, and so they've got crews that go out with these backpack sprayers, and they're spraying just a little, 3-foot cone around every seedling that they come across. And then we've got $54 per pound for the Velpar, and then $25 per gallon for a nitrogen fertilizer mix that we're adding to it. Gives those trees a little bit extra speedy boost, and so the faster we can get those trees up above, deer browse height, the less we have to pay for putting up on the bud caps in the fall. So, just that we're trying to get these trees up and growing as fast as possible. So, But I do recommend the low quote from Eric Roberts Spraying for $156 per acre and the cost for the chemicals.
Also move.
Second. Thank you, Dave. Any further discussion?
I used to see pine trees within 2 years be at that stage already. Of course, in a different section of the country.
Yeah.
They get to grow all year.
Oh, yeah, well, not all year, but they grow fast.
Alrighty, all those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the last item on the agenda is the approval of our timber appraisals for April 11th timber auction. We have 10 tracts totaling 568.8 acres, 9,655 cords, and a total appraised value of $247,044.20.
If, I don't know if everybody got a chance to look at those. Okay. If I can get a motion.
I'll move.
Thank you, Tom.
Approve.
And I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried.
That is all I have.
Alrighty. I was gonna ask you about your testifying in front of the Senate, but you already touched on that, so.
It went well. There was, I think they were hearing 3 or 4 bills, and we were up first, so it wasn't very long. It took all of about 5 minutes, but it's been referred over for possible inclusion, so we're a step farther than we were last year.
Well, thank you for pursuing that.
Yeah.
I gave your name to somebody yesterday. I encouraged them to call you. They asked me about, you know, was it the last meeting or the meeting before where you talked about the state coming in and looking for possible archaeology things on the, and so I didn't know enough about it. I sent them to you. So if you get a call.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Solid waste.
Good morning. All right, so the first item I have for you today is a resolution to support resolution of support for hosting a Minnesota Green Corps member. Some background, as you know, in the past, we've hosted 2 Green Corps members previously. We've had pretty good success with both of them members and are looking at applying for another member for the 2022 to 2023 program year. If selected, our member would continue to work on education and outreach related to solid waste, and the main focus would be working on our reuse program to try to reuse more with items that people bring in and demolition debris. I think every year we apply, our odds of being successful kind of diminish, but I still think it's worth putting an application in to see if we can get another member. I would estimate we maybe contribute, you know, when you can consider everything from mileage expenses to supervision to everything, we probably have a financial impact of less than $5,000, kind of to the county where we get a full-time employee for a year pretty much. So it's a win-win situation for us, so.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve.
Thank you,
I'll
Jen.
second.
Dan? Any further discussion?
It's a good program.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
been
think it was
successful.
received
Good
well
job,
by
Josh.
public.
Yeah, that too.
Yep.
Alrighty. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, so the next item I have is to review and approve a contract for shingle recycling. So some background information on this. We collect clean shingles at our south transfer station, have been doing it for a number of years now, and we have about 8,500 yards to 9,000 yards of shingles on site. over the last year, we had been reaching out to contractors to try to find contractors to come in and grind the shingles so we could, highway department could use it, or we could use it for other beneficial uses. And it's been really challenging to find anybody to come in and do that. We had found a couple companies in Wisconsin that had the capabilities. The price was a little bit higher than what we'd liked. So I went back this spring and started talking with Beltrami, Becker, some other regional counties to try to maybe go in as a bigger region and get that cost down a little bit. Anyway, throughout this process, Becker County started looking at it a little bit more, and they were approached by Howard's Paving out of Monaga, and they were interested in taking our scrap shingles from our solid waste facilities, and this would be contracted just be for Hubbard County, but they'd also have a contract with Becker County, and they'd take the shingles whole, haul them from our site to their hot mix plant, which is in Becker County. I think it's about 12 to 15 miles away from the transfer station. And at their site, they would grind and incorporate the ground shingles into their asphalt mix. We feel that this would be a great project for us, for the contractor, and for Becker County as well. This is an approved reuse by the Pollution Control Agency. So looking at the contract, I attached a draft contract here. The only thing that was updated in this contract to finalize it was the date and the location of the hot mix plant. This contract was, we discussed this at a Public Safety and Transportation Committee a couple weeks ago, and also was reviewed by the county attorney. But kind of the nuts and bolts of the contract is the contractor would take our shingles at no cost to us. They would pay us nothing for the shingles. They would be responsible for loading and hauling the shingles to their site and taking care of the processing, making sure they have all their permits needed in Becker County and by the state. So we'd be looking at entering into a 5-year contract with a 5-year renewal, and I think it'd be a great opportunity for us to get our shingles reused, and for the contractor as well to have that reuse story about being able to incorporate that into their mix. So,
How much space do they, being the shingles, take up now? I mean, if you could paint us a picture.
well, so we got about 9,000 cubic yards out there right now, so it's a pretty big pile. There's, in the contract, there's limits of how much they can have on their site that Becker County wanted to have in there. But pretty much they'd work on getting our pile cleaned out probably this year. And then moving forward, they would just periodically come in and be taking shingles all throughout the year to kind of incorporate as they need it into their asphalt mix, so.
So would that current shingle pile fill this room?
Yeah, it's, well, I guess if you drove out there, I don't even know. I guess it's 10,000 yards is quite a bit of material. So.
Trying to put that in perspective.
I
Yeah,
can't
I mean,
guess.
if you saw our crushed concrete pile at the transfer station, there's probably 15,000 yards of that out there. That's a pretty monstrous pile, so.
So eventually, when that pile gets too big, what would you do with it without this contract?
Well, we would be forced, right now, we were looking at being, we have to bring a grinding company in here to grind it, and then we'd have a, product we can market or the highway department could use, but, we're supposed to be getting rid of that every 3 years, per our permit, and, we've been pushing up against that, and we just have too big of a quantity to really manage and use on our own too, so this is a great way to get that product reused and keep it out of the landfill, so.
I thank you for your persistence, because even before you started on the whole county board, we were looking for solutions for this, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's they have invested in a grinder, and, I hope it works out. It could be a kind of a great regional
Yes.
success story, so
Yep.
hopefully, so.
Okay. There's no further discussion. Can I get a motion?
Yep.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dave. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, that's all I had, so.
Do we still have a lot of concrete, crushed concrete there, or what's?
Yeah, I would say we probably have 12 to 15,000 yards still there, so we got a lot, so. People, once they can start coming and loading that up whenever they want, so.
Since you're here, we had a meeting in Boston last week. Can you just kind of give the board a brief? I did, kind of sprung this on you, I didn't think about it, but,
Yeah, I should, maybe I'll just pull up, if you give me a second, I'll pull up a recap that I'd sent.
perfect.
That'll help me guide me through it here.
I know there's good and bad. We would just stop making so much garbage.
Josh, do you want me to share the update you shared with me with the commissioners, or there?
Well, that's what I was gonna pull up, so.
Here.
There you go. All right. So yeah, with the meeting, our volumes were up quite a bit in 2021. And I've reported on that as well, but as the group as a whole, they were up considerably, and a lot of that was due to the pipeline project. Clearwater County had huge increases, kind of based on the material with the pipelines. So the good news was that both the incinerator and the landfill both ended the year in the black, and I think that's probably the first time in a few years. And that was due to kind of the wild swings in the market where they swung way up last year. Now they've kind of settled back down a little bit, but they're still higher than they have been over the last several years. And I think with the current issues going on, they'll probably continue to swing up and down. So that was the good news. Kind of the other aspects or the issues that the counties are going to be facing is in regards to PFAS. That's a forever chemical that the state's kind of really big into tracking and trying to figure out a solution to right now. And pretty much there's going to be voluntary testing that counties are going to have to do on facilities. And the voluntary will probably switch over to mandatory testing to be able to keep operating with permits. But in the next few years, that's going to like to do the testing for the incinerator to look at the air quality with the PFAS would be an additional, I think, $38,000 a year, above and beyond anything they already do. To do the landfill in Polk County is about $100,000 a year. Then looking at just like our demolition facility, I imagine our costs would probably be between $20,000 and $50,000 a year more than what we're doing right now in our testing. So this is going to impact, all the counties across the state and feeling it within our region as well. Polk County does have a grant, capital assistance program grant in for looking at getting some robots into the incinerator to help with their sorting of waste. They have been struggling ever since I've been involved with being able to obtain staffing, and it's just been getting worse and worse. And the robots can help with some of the sort line work. So they have some funding in for that, and then also doing some additional improvements in the landfill as well. So it'd be a $4.8 million project. They'd be responsible for $2.4 million, which they probably bond for locally. And this is kind of a last minute push for Polk County to get that into this year's bonding bill, and he didn't expect it to go very far. But then it was included in the governor's bonding plan and is kind of it's progressing really quickly. So there is somewhat of a likelihood that could go through, which would help the region out. Let's see, some of the other highlights, I guess, was the Polk County is looking next year to go into their next cell for their landfill. And as with everything, the costs of that are going up really quickly with increasing fuel, with increasing equipment prices. So a project that they were looking at The project cost, I can't remember what the total was, but it was, I think it went from, 1.7 million was the estimated cost to do this new landfill cell last fall, and now it's up to $2.4 million. And it's just with the, what's been happening in the world. And that didn't even include, the latest issues with fuel prices, so it's probably gonna go up even further. So there's gonna be more capital required with the landfill. They've been dealing with wetland issues, trying to resolve that. There's a wetland kind of where the future of the landfill up there is gonna be developed. And that's been kind of going good, going bad, going good, going bad, and they think they finally hopefully have a resolution they'll work through this summer, so. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that. If they can find a good resolution to that, it'll, kind of solve the landfilling needs long into the future, so. Then just with the equipment issues, Jed kind of highlighted it, equipment issues with delays of obtaining equipment, and then other issues with inflation. It's just impacting all of our costs with, equipment prices to fuel prices. So, there's a lot more expenses that haven't been budgeted for that they're gonna be realizing over the next year. So all of these issues, stacked on top of each other, we could be looking at another potential increase in landfill disposal fees for next year, but they weren't quite at that point yet to knowing that for sure. Some of these other things have to kind of play out a little bit, but it's something we'll be discussing over the next few months, and we'll have in time for our budget planning, so.
And about the only thing I would add is that the steam sales were up a little bit last year, and recyclables, what we get paid for recyclables is, some things went up a little bit, some things went down a little bit, but it's a strong right now, so we're doing good on those revenues.
Yeah, it's kind of like you look at both sides of the coin, they're getting more for, a lot of the increases and stuff is due to fuel prices rising, so, they're getting paid more for the raw material, but then they're paying more on the other end for buying the stuff they need to buy too, so.
Thank you, Josh.
Yep.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day.
Next, we got administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a reminder of the Hubbard County Township Association meetings on March 21st. I believe that they've determined it's going to be virtual, and we have yet to see the invite or the timeline on that. County Assessor Jamie Freeman is going to give an update that she gave here at the work session to that group. I'll be touching base on redistricting, what the timeline is and what the process is, and then we'll have other updates if they're needed. I've talked about it before, but I just got another update from it. I want people to review it. The 2022 AMC Leadership Summit is.
Yeah, I looked at that. I have something else instead. Go ahead.
I look at it and I'm like, a humorous psychologist might not be exactly the presenter that would be of the greatest use to this board, so I think we'd look for something else. We continue to have questions coming in about ARPA spending and when we're gonna get back to that. I've had several requests and for more information. Basically, I told them it's gonna be 60 or 90 days before we have any additional information. I have asked Kay's office to give me an update on the monthly operating costs at Heritage, so we can work that into our next conversation. They're still finalizing getting valuations and reports out, so she said she'd have that information to me by the end of the week. And then just a thank you for everyone participating in the ICS inventory last week. Commissioner Stacy, I sent you an email, I think, did you get that, about the questions you can fill out? We can follow up after this meeting too. Basically, they want to make sure we get some feedback from all the commissioners. They facilitated a session that will integrate into our capital planning. We expect to have results from them by the end of the month. I've started working off of the Cass County Capital Improvement template, and we'll be putting that together probably through the month of April and have something ready, at least in draft form, before we get to the point of thinking about budgeting for the year.
Do you have any update from the brokerage firm with Heritage and the titles?
I have had exchanged several emails, and I'm gonna have a phone call with the attorneys from Raslaw. I think we know the path forward, and I think we're getting there. I have to do a settlement of mortgage. There was a mortgage that was placed on the property when the new market tax credits and the debt were put on the property, and now that we have to take that off. So we have to come up with and probably bring that for board action. I hope to bring it the first meeting in April if we can. The second thing that we have to do is we have to work with Heritage Center LLC and cancel the ground lease and the regular lease. And then once those three things are done, we probably have clear title we'll be back to having clear ownership and title of the property. And we need to get there.
So can you get what's needed from Heritage LLC will it be ready by the Heritage Board meeting this month, or will you have to wait till April?
That would be next Tuesday.
Yeah.
I will.
No, it's the 29th.
Oh, it's the 29th. It's the
Yeah.
last, that's much more likely on the 29th than next Tuesday.
Okay.
I also had, got a general property description from the broker, because we are gonna be responsible for making it available for sale for at least a 3-week period before that. And, they've been very helpful in providing a description of the property that we can use for that purpose. I haven't scheduled it, but I'm gonna have a call with the attorney from Reslaw this week to discuss those 4 items and get drafts ready. And if we have those drafts ready, I have to think about the order of operations. I don't know if we can have Heritage Center cancel the leases until we clear the mortgage, but I don't know that for sure.
Yep.
So there might be one more step in there. If we can, even if we can have that ready and bring it to the Heritage Center Board and have them clear those leases pending
Right.
satisfaction of mortgage, then we don't have to wait a whole month for that. We would just have to wait till April 5th for the board to be able to clear that satisfaction of mortgage.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we're getting close. At least we have our arms all the way around the problem now, which a month ago we were just still discovery mode.
Thank you. Committee reports. Anybody want to start? Dave?
I don't have anything.
Oh, you don't have anything? Okay, well, we'll start with
So
you
we'll
then.
start here.
Tom?
Oh, okay. Let's see, well, yeah, I did attend the AMC Environmental Policy Committee, which was held at the Legislative Conference. That was attended virtually. One of the things that was talked about was a presentation on the 404 assumption of Wetlands Conservation Act authority, being given it to the state. And the feds would hold on to any navigable waterways, but then the rest would turn over to the state. Also, Carrie Rudd, State Senator Carrie Rudd was there. She gave a presentation on things she's working on. One of them was, the budget surplus. I think you had mentioned some of that before. What to do with it. She's for tax reduction and also transferring and transfers. And this would include that score, that thing that Josh brought up a couple months ago or so. She's supports that. Money, instead of going to the general fund, have it go to the solid waste like they're supposed to in the beginning. Yeah, currently there's less than 20% of that money goes to solid waste management, which is not good. Anyway, that was interesting. And, to learn more about that 404 assumption thing, I wasn't very familiar with that, but now I got the whole scoop on it. Well, I missed this SWCD. Anything?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Actually, there was a presentation by somebody, I don't recall the name right off the bat, but they were concentrating on looking at the water quality, where the high concentration of the irrigation systems are in southern Hubbard, and the high concentration of the nitrogen. So They're just in the gathering data stage.
Thanks for attending that.
Yeah,
It-
thank
it
you.
just- They changed the time and it just didn't fit my schedule at all. That's all I got.
Thank you, Tom. Shar?
Okay, so along with SWCD, I just want to read this. This is from the, we met with Senator Ucky on Friday on behalf of Prime West. We met in the boardroom here. Jeff was in attendance along with Dan and myself. And so this is a recap that went out to all the counties that are involved with Prime West. I'm just going to read it. The commissioner leaders of Prime West Health met on Friday with HHS Chair Paul Ucky, Republican, Park Rapids at the Hubbard County Government Center. Commissioners attended along with Hubbard County Health and Social Service staff, and Prime West Health CEO Jim Prezavilla told Chairman Ucky about the value of county-based purchasing to MA enrollees and healthcare providers in their counties, as well as the role of their ongoing county economic development efforts. So we talked a lot about how Prime West reinvests back into the counties. They also spoke of their frustration with the ongoing refusal of the Department of Human Services to comply with existing state law recognizing the role of the counties in the MA and Minnesota care procurement processes. It's already written in statute that we can do this. Minnesota's 3 county-based purchasing plan, Prime West Health, Itasca Medical Care, and South Country Health Alliance filed suit against DHS on February 17th, seeking a court order to the department to comply with state law. Chairman Ucky, who read the lawsuit before coming to Friday's meeting, is well aware of the history of DHS obstructing local counties' desire to determine how best to serve their constituents' healthcare needs. He left the meeting with a better understanding of the value of the county-based purchasing, its importance in enrollees providing in counties, and the urgent need for DHS to comply with the existing law. County commissioners attending the meeting included both Prime West Health counties as well as counties that are seeking to join Prime West. So the county commissioners were from Beltrami, Clearwater, Hubbard, Big Stone, Douglas, Grant, Lyon, Pipestone, Renville, Swift, and Candy, Ohio. So one thing that Senator Ucky said was, that we knew this before, that DHS is telling their committee that the federal government is telling them that they can't do this, when in fact there's 3 different, it's California, Oregon, and what was the 3rd state? I don't remember. Actually, they're expanding their county-based purchasing, and this has nothing to do with the federal government. And so Senator Ucky felt like he was better educated now to go back and have a conversation with DHS, so it was really worthwhile.
Good.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to mention this. And once again, I'm going to read this. So this bill came out this week, and when I read this, think about Heritage and all the other long-term care facilities in the state of Minnesota. So HF 3405, which was introduced by Winkler, DFL from Golden Valley, legislation to establish a Minnesota Nursing Home Workforce Standards Board to create and oversee the industry workforce standards. This bill is moving forward in the House. It was approved on a party line vote in the House Labor, Industry, Veterans and Military Affairs, Finance and Policy Committee. The proposed 9-member board would be comprised of the commissioners of the Health, Human Services, and Labor Departments, or the designee, 6 members appointed by the governor, 3 representing nursing home employers or employee organizations, and 3 who represent nursing home workers or worker organizations. The board would be charged with establishing minimum nursing home employment standards, establish curriculum requirements for training, and certify who can provide necessary training to nursing home workers. The Department of Labor and Industry would be charged with standard enforcement and investigated alleged violations. Union representing nursing home workers supported the bill. A representative of care providers in Minnesota expressed concern about the bill, noting that 65 to 70% of long-term care facilities could not cover expenses for more than 1 month if the state missed a payment. He asked what would happen if the board says wages need to be raised, but the legislature funding does not follow. He warned that the board ordering salary increases for workers could diminish access by forcing the closures of nursing homes unable to comply. Potentially, this is a recipe for disaster for access to the seniors that we serve. The next bill stop is the House Judiciary Finance and Civil Law Committee, and right now it doesn't have a companion in the Senate. I talked to Mike how do you say his last name? Paulus, thank you. He's running for the House in 5A. He came from, he was a nursing home administrator, and I was surprised to find out that nursing home is the second most regulated industry in America, second to the nuclear facilities. And so here we are, once again, they're trying to pass a bill that has nothing to do with making this viable and successful in the future. It only has more government control. He said last night, if you read through their regulations, which is, he said they need about 40% of it, and the rest of it could just go away. And so I encourage you to reach out to whoever your representative is in the House and tell them, this isn't even a solution. This is gonna just create more and more regulation, more and more paperwork, and more closures. It is completely and utterly frustrating.
I talked with someone from the nursing home, and she said that there's some good training going on, like at the Neva School for CNAs.
Yeah, we don't need this regulation.
Yeah, what she said the bottleneck is in testing from the state. If they want to throw some money somewhere,
Yes.
get the testing done so we can get more employees in there.
And did you hear in this, or did you note in this bill that they want to take over? Who gets to decide who gets to train?
They're running towards a cliff and they're not slowing down, they're speeding up.
Yep.
Pretty soon they'll be gone.
And so then where do you go, where do you put the people? What do you do with them when they're out in the
Talking
curb?
about this cliff though.
Oh.
Pretty soon they'll be gone.
So anyway, I just passed that on to you. It's just beyond frustrating.
Thank you.
Yep.
Dan?
Tom's right, the school is working on work shortages in that particular field, healthcare or whatever. Let's see, today Hubbard and Prevention has Miss Minnesota in Park Rapids School talking about mental health. They were in LaPorte yesterday. Tomorrow they go to Nevis School District. Trying to think what else here. Just a note that Towards Zero Death is not on our per diem sheet there, at least it's not in here. So you'll see another in there. And the only other thing like say Sharon and I went on Friday it was, with Prime Health. It was really great to see everybody coming together, and there was a former legislator that was next to me. Do you remember his name? That interjected numerous comments.
Oh, Steve Gotwell?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it was very powerful. Now, what Paul can do, I have a lot of faith in him, my family and I. Things will work out. He's pretty strong in that area, but like I say, we'll have to just keep working with the legislature, Senate, and whatnot to make sure that they hear our voices, that we have a good product. And
Well, currently, there's been a different judge assigned to the case because the judge that was originally assigned is retiring. And so this will be decided in the courts, and then we can move on from there as far as encouraging the legislature. All we're asking is that they already enforce the statute that's in place. It's been in place since 1997.
I believe that's it.
Thank you, Dan. Let's see, I had, of course, solid waste that Josh was nice enough to touch on. He covered it a lot better than I would have, being that's his job. I also had the Mississippi River Headwaters, One Watershed, One Plan. Took another step. The state, Bowser hasn't finished approving everything, but basically the money's sitting there ready for us once they get their end done. Everything's getting into place. The soil and water conservation districts are ready to go. So there was a short meeting, but basically just got reelected as vice chair and just got an update that things are on track. And that's all I had.
And I'm not gonna be at Northwest because of state tournaments, just so you know that.
Thursday?
Yep, I'm gonna talk to Richard.
You're in the tournament?
No, I am not, but my granddaughter and our fellow team members are.
How fun.
You driving the bus?
Not no, I got direct orders from my boss, superintendent didn't understand that, but my boss, being the wife, says, nope, we're all going down there.
Let's see. So then, the things I have, of course, it's gonna be 3 weeks before our next meeting. We need to select who will be joining me at the managers meeting in a couple of weeks.
It's gotta be my turn.
Okay. Yeah, cause
I think everyone else is gone.
well, yeah, I think Tom has been there, Dave has been there, and so we'll have Shar join us.
And Dan has been there since the first of the year, haven't you?
No.
I don't think so.
Oh, haven't
I
you? Do you
did
wanna go on the
January.
29th?
29th?
Yep, I can wait a month, doesn't matter.
Let me look here, 29th. It looks good,
Okay,
You
Dan
do
can
the
go and I'll go
29th?
next month.
Dan will join us then.
all right.
Just a reminder that we have the Prime Health Zoom meeting on the 24th at 12 o'clock, and a reminder to Jeff to please invite Gina,
What is that?
the 24th at 12. And Mr. Chair, if I could make a motion, this is an informational session, just like AMC, so I would like to move that we would receive it per diem that day.
Okay. Do we need a?
Noon, did you say?
The 24th
24th.
at 12 o'clock. And you guys, this is Prime Health. This is so important that you attend, because when we make a decision of what's best for our employees, when it comes to health, you need this background from Prime Health,
Yeah.
because we have to look further than just what our premium is for 1 year or whatever, no matter who we look at.
Yeah. And I had it on my
In person or
calendar.
Zoom?
No, this is all Zoom, so you can be wherever you're at, and then the reimbursement comes through the county.
Okay. Jeff, do we need to make a motion so we get per diem for that? For Prime Health Zoom meeting on the 24th?
It doesn't hurt.
Okay.
I'll second.
So Shar made the motion,
Yep.
Tom seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
And then for meetings to note, I received this morning from Julie at AMC. So NACO is sponsoring a high-performance leadership program for women commissioners in Minnesota. It's a 12-week program. It'll require 4 hours per week, 2 hours of reading, 1 hour small group, 1 hour large group. And the cost is $1,545. So I would be interested in doing this. I'm wondering if this would be something the board would be interested in having me do.
What is it again? What exactly does it do?
Okay, so it's a high-performance leadership program. Here's the first one, is your leadership mindset, your potential as a positive leader, your leadership rules, process of change, planning, executing, and sustaining, speaking the language of business, positive communications, and then the fourth course, this is per month, once a week you do this. And then the fourth week is, it's all about people.
It's any of our staff, department heads?
No, this
It's
is
a
only for
commissioner.
women
Just
commissioners.
Okay.
But what you need to decide is if you think it's worth the $15, it's $1,545. And I can't do the first session, which is April 25th to July 29th, because I have a week of vacation in there. So I guess if it would be okay, I could respond to Julie and say I would be interested in possibly the next session. And then you guys can think about this, and I'll bring it before you before I would commit.
Okay. I'd like that for more information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And if there's nothing else, I'll get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Dave? And I'll second it. All those in favor, say aye.
Hey.
Bye.
Motion carried. We are adjourned.